Hello, fellow teachers, and welcome to Teacher School at the Accent Channel. This is Jessica. I'm a speech pathologist, and I teach accents, dialects, and English pronunciation. Here at Teacher School at the Accent Channel, I help accent and pronunciation instructors sharpen their teaching skills, create their own materials, and build their own accent and pronunciation training businesses so they can call the shots and work for themselves. Today, I want to talk about something that has been coming up a lot. It's a question that so many of you have been asking recently, so I want to address it. The question is this: do I need to be a native speaker of English to teach accents and pronunciation of English? So today, I'm going to tell you why you do not need to be a native speaker of English to teach accents and pronunciation. And I'll also tell you how you can actually use being a non-native speaker to your advantage. So if you're a non-native speaker of English, this episode is all about you. And if you're a native speaker of English, you'll still want to listen and pay attention because I'm going to give you some insights into how your students are feeling. I work with tons of non-native speakers, and I hear from them. I hear their fears about speaking English, what makes them self-conscious, what makes them anxious, why they come to me for services in the first place. Now, from a marketing standpoint, you need to know what your students are feeling. You need to know their fears and their hopes and what keeps them up at night. We in marketing, these are called pain points. And from a marketing standpoint, yes, you need to know it because that's what attracts your students to you. But as a teacher, knowing what your students are feeling allows you to show them exactly how you can help them. And it allows you to, there's a counseling aspect to accent training. It allows you to work with them on building their confidence. So whether you are a native speaker of English or a non-native speaker of English, you're going to get a lot out of this lesson. So let's jump right in. You do not need to be a native speaker of English to teach accents and pronunciation of English. I just want to make that clear. So, non-native speakers, you can teach if you focus less on worrying about your accent and focus more on being a great speech model for your students. You want to be a great speech model. They have to have someone to listen to. But that model can have a non-native accent. There are so many great speakers in this world that have non-native accents when speaking English. Because what makes a great speaker is not pronunciation. It's not how they pronounce the words. What makes a great speaker is confidence. What makes a great speaker is having the ability to express their ideas clearly and concisely and in an interesting way. Being a great speaker means having interesting variations in pitch and knowing when to pause and how to use humor when you speak. Having an American accent does not make you a great speaker. I think we can all think about or come up with some examples of people who are awful speakers who have an American accent. So your accent doesn't make you a great speaker or a great speech model. So if English is not your first language and you have a non-native accent, don't focus on trying to erase your accent or to learn a perfect American accent. Instead, change your mindset. I want you to focus on being a great speech model or a great speaker. So if you are a non-native speaker of English and you're ready to be that great speech model for your students, forget about your accent and instead focus on these areas. Focus on being confident. Focus on expanding your vocabulary and focus on being easily understood. So let's talk about number one, being confident. I want you to know, as a non-native speaker who's worried about your accent and pronunciation, I'm here to tell you that you sound better than you think you do. Now, I know I can't hear you, and that is a statement that I'm making, but I've worked with thousands of students who are non-native speakers. Every one of them sounded better than they thought they did. All my students, they are their harshest critics. They hear things and perceive things about their speech that no one else notices. And because they're so critical, they're self-conscious. They're anxious. So because they have these feelings of anxiety and feeling self-conscious, anytime they speak, they get nervous. They start to speak really quickly. A lot of people will drop volume. They'll try to, it's almost like they're trying to hide their accent by getting through the words as quickly as they can. And this doesn't help at all. This doesn't make you sound confident. It doesn't make you sound good. It just makes you sound anxious and difficult to understand. So don't let your accent make you feel self-conscious. Speak up. Project your voice. Let your voice be heard. Don't speak too quickly. Now, you can connect your words. We don't want to break up the words. You want to connect all your words, but don't speak too quickly. Don't let your volume drop off at the ends of sentences. People do this when they get nervous too. And be sure that you're not using a question intonation when you mean to use a statement intonation. Let me say that again. I'm going to make sure I got it right. And be sure you're not using a question intonation when you mean to use a statement intonation. I have a habit of doing this when I get nervous. So this is what happens. You fall into this pattern of everything sounding like a question, and you're constantly going up in pitch at the end of each line. And once you start doing it, you keep doing it over and over, and people notice that, and it gets really annoying. And because you're turning a statement into a question, it's really undermining your authority and your confidence. Listen to the difference between a question. Is today Thursday? I can go up in pitch. Now, if I answer with that same intonation, yes, it's Thursday, it's just like hanging out there and you don't know that I'm finished and there's no real answer. With a statement, I need to go down in pitch at the end. Yes, it's Thursday. Today is Thursday. Not today's Thursday. Going up in pitch. Today's Thursday. Going down in pitch at the end. So there's a lot to know about intonation and playing around, but from a confidence standpoint, I want you to really get into the habit of being sure that you end strong. End every sentence, end every phrase, not only with a downward inflection or downward change in pitch, but also a strong volume. Don't let your sentences die away. And this, it seems a little exaggerated, and I'm giving exaggerated examples, but people do this when they feel self-conscious. So remember, there are things that you can control that have nothing to do with accent or pronunciation. Speak up, project your voice, don't speak too quickly, watch your intonation, do all these things, and you will sound confident even if you're not feeling so comfortable about your pronunciation. Okay, moving on to number two. Number two, the second way to be a great speech model. You need to focus on expanding vocabulary. Now, this one applies to all of us as teachers, native speakers and non-native speakers. We can all grow our vocabulary, but non-native speakers usually have to work a little harder, especially when we're talking about learning and using and teaching idioms. Now, to be a great speech model, you should be able to easily express your ideas. So you should focus on growing your vocabulary so you have more words at your disposal. You should also focus on adding new idioms to your speech so that you can express your ideas in a more colorful and interesting way. Idioms just give a little color. They make things a little more exciting rather than, standard old vocabulary words. Idioms are important, and sometimes they're a more succinct way to say something. You can say something more quickly with an idiom than you can with standard vocabulary words. So focus on adding idioms. Now, when you learn new words and you learn new idioms, you need to remember to practice using them out loud. And this is something I do with my students. So everybody, all teachers, this is something that I would do in my sessions. We would learn and practice vocabulary words and idioms out loud. Because knowing the meaning of a word and how to use it is very different than actually using it and pronouncing it out loud in a real conversation. All of us understand and know the meaning of more words than we actually use. That's just a fact. And this happened to me recently with the word biopic. Now, I've seen this word a million times. It's been around, and I love biopics. It's one of my favorite types of movies. I'd seen it a million times. I've read it a million times, but I've never actually, I didn't realize that I hadn't. But when a student asked me how to pronounce it, I realized that I've actually never said the word out loud, and I didn't know if it was biopic or biopic. And my instinct was to say biopic. I was wrong. My instinct was wrong. So I definitely would have said biopic instead of biopic. So there you go. I learned something too. But this does happen in my sessions. And if a student asks me how to pronounce something during a session, and I don't know the word, it happens, of course. If I don't know the word, I look it up right then and there in front of my student. I have them look it up with me. And the reason I never hide the fact that I don't know how to pronounce something. I do this because I think it's good for our students to know that even native speakers don't know how to pronounce every single word in English. So we just don't. There are new words all the time. There are so many words. There's no way. No one knows how to pronounce every word in English. So they shouldn't feel that they should know every word in English or that they must know every word in English to be a competent speaker. It's just not true. So if a student asks me how to pronounce a word that I don't know or the meaning of a word that I'm not familiar with during my session, I look it up right there and I practice the pronunciation right along with my student. I learn it along with them. And then I do what I tell them. I practice it 10 times a day until it becomes automatic and consistent for me. So I learn right along with them. Now, occasionally I will feel that it's taking up too much time to look up a word or if we're near the end of a session. So what I will say in that situation is I'll say to my student, you know what? I'm not 100% sure on the answer to that. Let me do some research and I will get back to you. And then I get back to them with the answer. It's perfectly fine to admit that you don't have all the answers. Even as a teacher, we don't know everything. And I think that admitting this and showing them that it's okay to not know words and pronunciations helps them feel more confident. And at the end of the day, that's what this work is all about. So to be a great speech model, keep learning new words, keep using new idioms, and keep practicing new pronunciations. I do it all the time. All right, the last thing to focus on in order to be a great speech model is being easily understood. Now, when I say be easily understood, I don't mean learn a perfect general American accent and sound like a game show host from 1975. I'm also not saying that you need to sound exactly like me. I'm just telling you, you need to be easily understood. And that does not require as much time and effort as you might think. To be easily understood and to be a great speech model, you just need to focus on a few of the most frequently occurring and some of the most important sounds and concepts of English. So, as a non-native speaker, you should focus on improving your instinct for which syllable to stress in words. So knowing the strong syllable and stressing the strong syllable enough is important because that's the number one reason that most non-native speakers are not easily understood. What happens is they'll stress the wrong syllable or they'll just make everything too equal. An example that I use a lot because it's commonly non-native speakers will commonly stress the wrong syllable is the word development. I very commonly hear development. So they'll stress the first syllable, development, instead of development. So knowing which syllable to stress definitely helps you be easily understood. And this is something you can learn and practice. And the more you learn and practice it, the more you'll develop your instinct. So that is important. It's also important to focus on improving high impact pronunciation goals. These are the pronunciation goals that make your speech easy to understand and occur frequently in English. So just improving just a few really well-chosen goals that occur often in English will make a huge impact on your speech and make you easily understood almost all of the time. No one needs to work on every sound in English. No one. Never. Not something you need to do. You need to focus, and for your students, this is how I select my lesson plans. This is how we decide which goals to work on. You work on the pronunciation goals that have the biggest impact on spoken English. So if you want to be easily understood, you just want to practice a few of the really, the most high impact, most frequently occurring goals of pronunciation. And if you're interested in getting some help on doing this, I have a really effective online course that covers these goals, and it gives you practice on rhythm and that instinct for syllable stress as well. The way it works is you focus on one goal per week, and I give you all the repetition practice that you need to make each goal permanent in your real life conversation. So if you want to hear some big improvements in your speech with just 4 weeks of practice, you will definitely want to check it out. And I'll post a link to that course in the lesson notes for this episode. Now, before I wrap up this episode, I have one last bonus tip for non-native speakers. If you are a non-native speaker who is teaching accents and pronunciation, you can actually use your accent as a marketing tool. Now, just bear with me. I've seen this work, and I want you to really consider this. If you have an accent and you're teaching pronunciation, you actually have a slight advantage, a marketing advantage over us as native speakers. Because when you are marketing your services, you can be your own success story. You don't have to get testimonials and social proof and listener before and after recordings. You are your success story. Now remember, no one expects you to sound exactly like a native speaker, but if you sound great and confident and you express yourself well and you are easily understood when you speak English, that's what most of my students are looking for. And you are showing your potential students a realistic example of what is possible. You've done it. And you can help them do it. You know how to improve spoken English, and with your help, of course, and with time and with practice, they can sound just like you. And people love this, and they relate to it. Just keep reminding, remind them that they can do it with your guide. And that's true. They need the guidance of an experienced instructor. But if it's an instructor who's done what they want to do, there's real power in that. And I've seen this work for several teachers in my teacher training program. And they're not native speakers of English. They have non-native accents, but they are great speech role models. They sound confident, they express themselves well, they're easily understood, and they have very successful English pronunciation training programs. So if you're a non-native speaker, please keep that in mind. And I think you should make it work to your advantage. Don't hide the fact that you're not a native speaker. Get it out there and be your own success story. So just a quick recap of what we covered. You do not need to be a native speaker to teach accents and pronunciation, but you do need to be a great speech role model. To do that, you need to focus on being confident, expanding your vocabulary, and being easily understood. And our bonus tip, remember, if you have an accent and you can help others improve, use that as a marketing tool. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you want to learn more about how to teach accents and pronunciation, my teacher training program is called Getting Started as an Accent Instructor. Now, part of the program is a section called The 11 Sounds and Concepts You Need to Know to Teach. I know that's a long title, but basically it's my 12-week lesson plan, and it's the 12-week plan that I use with my students. And in this section of the program, I basically teach you how to teach each sound. So there are detailed video tutorials for every sound, exactly the way I teach my own students. I also include practice sheets to use with your students and audio files that you can download and share with your students. So if you're worried about being a pronunciation model for your students, if you think your accent might be interfering right now, then you'll have these audio files to use with them, so they can use them to practice. And all the audio files use the general American accent or the standard American accent as the model. So you can use this part of the program to improve your own pronunciation, and then use the same method, system, and materials with your own students. You'll have access to everything. It's lifetime access. So you can use all the materials on yourself to improve your speech and then use it with your students. I'm really hands-on with the program. We do live workshops every single month where we learn more about teaching and marketing. So if you need help or feedback or have questions, I am always there. So if you want to join me inside the program, you can get all the details by going to theaccentchannel.com/accent instructor. And I will post the link to that course or that program in the lesson notes for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me here, native speakers and non-native speakers. I love hearing from you, so please let me know if you have questions. I look forward to seeing you next time here at Teacher School at the Accent Channel. Have a wonderful week.